I call David Clark.
Oh, Mr. Chair, it's going to be a hard act to follow, that one from Mr. Whāpoi, with his excellent suggestions for alternative titles. I, though, however, do wish to attempt a few of my own. And one is to draw attention to the fact that we've discovered in the fine print of Schedule 2 in an SOP that we didn't really have opportunity to discuss at length because of other pressures. That concern that vulnerable workers' rights are removed in this bill. Their ability to contest the change in employment provisions, or the change in employment, the nature of employment with the transitional arrangements, is not protected in the bill. It's explicitly ruled out in that schedule, and so we might actually say it's the standards and accreditations brackets, and by the way, removal of vulnerable workers' rights close brackets bill, because the slipping of that particular little line in there is rather mean-spirited. I think my colleagues, some of them have agreed with me, and I suspect many watching at home will agree that by targeting those who formerly worked for the Accreditation Committee that will now transfer to Moby, and ruling out some of them from taking any action based on what they perceive to be an injustice in the transfer, it is a pretty mean-spirited step. So we might give it that alternative title, just to make people aware that that's part of the government's agenda here. And part of the government's agenda, I would suggest, beyond this bill, is to remove the protection of for vulnerable workers, and it really is a shame, and there's no need for it, I would suggest, in this bill. Some of the other provisions there are designed in part to cover that off, but just to make it perfectly clear, they put a special clause in there to say that Part 6A of the relevant legislation does not apply, i.e. vulnerable workers have cannot go back to that protection if they feel hard done by in this transition. So we could make that point by putting in brackets with the bill that title. To raise another thing that's been brought up in the debate, the detraction from our international reputation and influence bill might be another title that we could adopt, given that we've seen in the bill that the change in structure will interrupt the existing successful arrangements we have, whereby members of the existing committee participate in international fora, and we have seen in the submissions process in the Select Committee that will be less highly prioritised. So we might choose a title to the bill that reflects that change in emphasis, that focus on collecting fees for the setting of standards and accreditation from successful existing industries, and the likely lower priority given to new and emerging industries, as this government seeks to protect entrenched interests over those that are coming through, those that would diversify the economy, those that might actually grow the economy in a way that protects it, that ensures that our future prosperity is protected. And I would be interested for the Minister to take a call on this, because he hasn't addressed this problem in the debate, in my view, and he could probably quite well address it in this particular title and commencement debate. It lends itself to a wide-ranging debate within the confines of the nature of describing a bill, but nonetheless wide enough that the Chair could give, I'm sure, an illuminating response if he had one at his disposal. But we shall see. That test will remain. We could also call it the standards and accreditation. And by the way, Henry VIII clauses slipped in as well, Bill, because that is another point that's been well made in the debate, that there are clauses that are very wide-ranging in this bill that appear at the end, that give the Minister the ability to hire and fire, that give the Minister to make some quite significant changes, and they were referred to by my colleague, the Honourable David Cunliffe, in his contribution to the debate. So we've seen that in this legislation there are many things which reflect the government's wider agenda, that sense of being a little bit arrogant, a little bit out of touch. They think they can pop things in here that wipe out vulnerable protection for vulnerable workers. They think they can slip in things here that give the Minister or others rights to do away with the usual parliamentary process with the Henry VIII clauses when they wish, and also we've seen here that arrogance in the ignoring of the advice to select committees from industry representatives, that sense of being out of touch with where industry is today.
I call Claire Curran.